Okay, let's dive in. The global push to cut emissions, it's huge, obviously.
It really is.
And some sectors, aviation being a prime example, face these really unique challenges. You can't just, switch out jet fuel easily.
Not overnight, no. But it's actually fascinating to see how companies are finding, let's say, creative ways around some of these problems.
Yeah, creative solutions popping up.
And it's interesting how these big international climate goals, they filter down, they become actual projects on the ground, sometimes creating whole new markets.
Exactly. And that's really what we're digging into today. We've got some sources here that point to a pretty significant development. It's in the carbon credit world, involving a Vietnamese company and some, frankly, unexpected projects in Southeast Asia.
Right. So our mission here is, let's unpack this story. Who are the players? What exactly are they doing? What's the scale we're talking about?
And crucially, why does it matter? Especially, like you said, for the aviation industry trying to clean up its act.
Yeah, that aviation link is key.
And you should know, the players here include a company maybe you haven't heard of, Intraco, and its subsidiary SIPCO, but also potentially the airlines you fly with.
And it all connects back to these big international frameworks like CORSIA for aviation and the Paris Agreement. So yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, so first off, the scale. What Intraco, through SIPCO, has apparently managed to pull off. It seems big.
Yeah, big is putting it mildly. The numbers are pretty eye-popping straight away. This Vietnamese company, Intraco, they've secured approval for the international transfer of just a massive amount of carbon credits.
How massive are we talking?
The target is over 90 million carbon credits by 2030.
Wow, 90 million by 2030. That's a huge number in the carbon market context.
It really is, and it's not just a future promise either. No, the sources are saying over 4.5 million of those credits have already been authorized for issuance. They're basically ready to hit the market.
Okay, 4.5 million ready now. That kind of volume immediately makes them a serious player, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Which kind of brings us to the next point, how this connects globally. And specifically, you mentioned, to aviation.
Exactly. By getting this volume approved, especially credits that meet certain very specific international standards, well, Intraco has quickly become one of the biggest global suppliers of credits aimed directly at the aviation sector.
Right. Because these aren't just any credits. They're designed to meet CORSIA standards. That's the carbon offsetting and reduction scheme for international aviation.
Precisely. Airlines need these specific verified credits. It's part of how they meet their obligations under CORSIA to offset emissions growth.
And is there demand?
Oh, definitely. The sources mention over 100 airlines are already negotiating to buy these credits.
100 airlines. That's incredible reach.
It really shows the level of interest and maybe the perceived quality or reliability of these credits.
And the sources even hint at pricing.
Yeah, they suggest these CORSIA-compliant credits trade internationally, somewhere between $20 and $40 per credit. Depends on the deal terms, of course.
Multiply that by, even just the 4.5 million ready now, let alone 90 million. You start to see the financial scale involved here.
It's significant, yeah. Climate action turning into major market activity.
Okay, so demand is there. Intraco has the supply, it meets the CORSIA standard. But what is it about these credits specifically? What makes them, high quality and compliant? The sources get into the criteria.
Right, this is crucial for the integrity. To be CORSIA eligible, these credits have to tick several boxes. First, simple one, issued after 2021.
Okay, a date requirement. Makes sense.
Then, really importantly, they need official approval from the host country for international transfer. So for that big 90 million number, the projects are mainly in Laos and Cambodia.
Host country approval. So the country where the emissions are reduced has to explicitly say, yes, this credit can be sold and used by, say, an international airline.
Exactly that. It's called corresponding adjustments sometimes. It ensures the reduction isn't double counted. This is fundamental under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, which these credits also have to comply with.
Article 6. That's the part of the Paris Agreement dealing with international carbon markets, essentially.
You got it. So Article 6 compliance, host country approval. What else?
Anything else?
There's a technical aspect, too. The actual technology used in the project has to be accepted by ICO, the International Civil Aviation Organization.
Okay.
And interestingly, the sources point out things that are excluded types of projects that don't count towards this batch.
Like what? What's excluded?
Specifically, forestation projects and also renewable energy projects that are bigger than 15 megawatts.
Okay, so these 90 million credits, they're not coming from planting trees or large solar farms. That's useful context.
It definitely sets them apart.
And you mentioned SIPCO operates elsewhere too, Vietnam, the Philippines?
Yes, they do have other projects, but the sources seem to link this really large authorized volume for international transfer specifically to the initiatives in Laos and Cambodia.
Got it. Okay, so let's get to the really interesting part. If it's not forests or big renewables, where are these credits coming from? The sources describe the actual projects, and I have to say, it wasn't what I was expecting.
This is where it gets quite unique, I think. The indication is that a huge chunk of these credits, maybe most of them, are generated from projects focused squarely on improving public health in communities in Cambodia and Laos.
Public health.
Yeah.
You're saying carbon credits from public health work. How does that connection even work?
Yeah, it's not immediately obvious, is it? So the sources say that since 2022, Intrico, via SIPCO, has put about $60 million into these initiatives.
$60 million invested into what exactly? What are the activities?
Okay, the core activity is distributing energy-efficient cooking stoves and water filtration devices. And importantly, distributing them for free to households.
Free stoves and water filters. That sounds, I don't know, more like development aid. How does giving away stoves generate carbon credits?
Well, this is the clever link. It's what the sources call the dual benefit. These specific devices are designed to cut greenhouse gas emissions in a measurable way.
Okay, walk me through that. How does a stove cut emissions?
Well, think about traditional cooking in many rural areas.
Yeah.
It often involves burning wood, maybe charcoal, often on open fires, or really inefficient stoves. That burns a lot of fuel, creates a lot of smoke, a lot of emissions.
Right. Indoor air pollution, too.
Exactly. These energy-efficient stoves, they use much, much less fuel, less wood, less charcoal to cook the same meal. So you directly reduce the amount of biomass being burned. Less burning means fewer emissions. CO2, methane, black carbon.
Ah, I see. Less fuel burn, less carbon release. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And the water filters.
Similar logic. If you don't have safe tap water, what do? You boil it.
Right. Burning more fuel.
Precisely. By providing effective water filters, you eliminate or drastically reduce the need to boil water for purification. Again, less fuel burned, fewer emissions.
So giving people these devices directly reduces the burning of wood and charcoal for basic needs like cooking and getting clean water. And that reduction, the avoided burning, is what gets measured, verified, and turned into these carbon credits.
That's exactly it. The emission reductions are calculated based on how many devices are used, how much fuel they save compared to the old methods, and then verified, and these credits can then be approved for international transfer under Article 6 rules.
Wow. So it really connects supporting, sustainable living and health, clean water, less smoke directly to creating these internationally traded environmental assets.
Yeah, it shows how carbon finance can actually drive projects with these multiple co-benefits. It's not just about the carbon, it's about health, development.
Okay, let's talk execution. Giving away potentially millions of devices sounds like a massive logistical operation. Do the sources say anything about progress? Timelines?
They do. The distribution targets are pretty staggering. In Cambodia, the goal is 600,000 stoves and 600,000 water filters.
600,000 of each. In Cambodia alone and Laos.
Laos, the target is 420,000 stoves and 400,000 filters.
Good grief.
And the aim is to get all of this done across both countries by 2026.
That's ambitious. Over 2 million devices in just a few years. Has they actually made headway?
Yes, significant headway, according to the reports. Phase 1 in Cambodia apparently wrapped up in December 2024.
Okay, end of last year. And how many devices did they manage in just phase 1?
Get this. 470,000 energy-efficient stoves and 250,000 water filters distributed completely free in that phase alone.
Nearly 500,000 stoves and 250,000 filters for free just in phase 1 Cambodia. That's incredible deployment. Who helps them do this on the ground? You can't just parachute these things in.
No, you need local partners. In Cambodia, they've worked with groups like the Cambodia Women for Peace and Development Association. They were key in phase 1 and are involved in phase 2 as well.
Okay.
And also collaborating with the Red Cross. And importantly, the Ministry of Environment of Cambodia is involved, especially for phase 2.
And phase 2 is underway now, continuing the rollout.
That's right. The sources indicate phase 2 officially launched, so the distribution continues. The project is active, generating these credits as it goes.
Okay, so let's pull this all together. Why should someone listening right now care about this specific story of stoves and filters in Cambodia and Laos?
Well, I think it's a really clear, kind of tangible example of how these huge, sometimes abstract global climate agreements, the Paris Agreement, Core CA rules for planes, actually translate into concrete actions in specific places.
Right, it connects the dots.
And maybe the aha moment is seeing how something seemingly simple, like a better cook stove or a water filter, when done at scale, becomes this really powerful tool. It's not just cutting emissions, right?
No, improving health, maybe saving people time gathering wood.
Exactly. And at the same time, it creates these valuable, verifiable assets, the carbon credits, that an industry like aviation actually needs to meet its climate targets.
It really underscores that innovation in climate solutions doesn't always mean high tech. Sometimes it's about deploying appropriate tech effectively at the community level.
And showing that you can get verified emissions reductions from these kinds of interventions, delivering multiple benefits along the way.
So recapping this deep dive then, we've looked at Intraco-SIPCO, using these targeted public health projects distributing stoves and water filters in Southeast Asia to generate a really significant volume of carbon credits.
Yep. High-quality credits, compliant with international rules. Over 4.5 million already authorized, aiming for over 90 million by 2030.
Making them a major supplier, potentially to over 100 airlines needing these credits for CORSIA compliance.
It's a fascinating case study in how climate finance is driving investment into projects that aim for both environmental wins and real improvements in people's daily lives, scaled up significantly.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you, listening. When you understand that the value of a carbon credit can be directly linked to something as concrete as giving someone a free, life-improving stove or water filter, how does that change how you think about tackling climate change? Does seeing that direct link make the potential for scaling these kinds of actions feel more, I don't know, real or achievable globally? Something to ponder.